also, now, under the Mosaic Law, there were some instances where when you had a trial and the judge couldn't discern who was right or wrong, he could put them under an oath. In other words, they had to invoke the name of God and essentially invoke a curse on themselves if they were lying and this kind of stuff. So there was times when that was actually commanded. And like the test of adultery in Numbers chapter 5, the woman invoked the name of God and brought a curse upon herself if she was lying. So you could have that situation. But it was. Taking God's name was to be very serious, and keeping a covenant was important because they served a covenant-keeping God. And they were to reflect His character. Just as we are to be imitators of God as His beloved children, we're supposed to reflect His character to the world. And again, there I think is where I respect the Amish in that I believe that that's a part of what they're doing in the response to this horrible tragedy. Is the world is seeing them reflect the merciful, compassionate, forgiving character of God. And it's a great testimony. Now, chapters 10, 11, and 12, of course, is the conquest of the land. You have the northern campaign and you have the southern campaign. And God uses this situation to bring about the demise of these guys. And in chapter 12, you have a listing of all the conquests. 31 city-states. That's a lot of people. And that's a lot of battles over a 7-year time period. And these are cities that are heavily defended. Big walls. Canaanite walls were not little 10-foot walls. They're like 50 feet high. They were well-built, defended cities. And so you had to scale those walls and things, and the Israelites successfully conquered them.
It's interesting. Joshua 11:13 says, however, Israel did not burn any cities that stood on their mounds.
That's right.
It's a great description of what you
those
see when
tales.
you go there. Yeah.
That's right.
How big were these usually in acreage, or I mean, in other words, their footprint?
Their footprint, I would put at most of them are probably between, small ones would be 10 to 20 acres, larger ones 50 acres, maybe 100.
Not real big.
No. Ancient, first century Jerusalem is about 100 acres.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But that's just the walled city.
Yeah, that's
where they
inside
would
the wall.
retreat to
Right.
in times of
Then
war.
you got the villages around it that would spread on
But
out.
the walled city
Yeah.
itself was
But the walled city, yeah, they would be that.
not that big.
In fact, like Beit Shan, which is in the Jezreel Valley near the Jordan River, which was a first century city, it has a tell. I mean, it's steep and it's high, but it's probably only 20 acres on the top. It's quite small once you get to the top, and it's way up there. I mean, it must have been conquered a bunch of times, and it's a high climb.
Like Hatzor, I think, is 50 acres, and it's considered one of the biggest fortified actual
cities. Yeah,
cities.
yeah, they're not very. But they would. But see, on this hillside, then you'd have this wall that then is just made right up the hillside, and it's steep, and so it would be a challenge. It's not a matter of coming with a battering ram and knocking the wall out from under it. It's not like it's sitting on the ground. You've got to climb that thing and get up there and storm the gates. So, or starve them out. And the Israelites didn't wait to starve them out; they stormed them, and they took them. Now, you have this list of these 31 kings, and you see that God delivered them in. In fact, it's interesting in the list, they says that 2 of them God took care of himself with hornets. We're not told exactly what it involved, but it sounds like, I don't know about y'all, but it's like, last September my wife and I were out working on our backyard when the yellow jackets attacked. During the month of September especially, they get into this aggressive stage, and right at dusk, you don't want to be outside because you can't see them. They come after you. And so I can see how God could chase them off with that. Now, the rest of Joshua, of course, covers the distribution of the land. Chapter 13, of course, you get his command to distribute. In chapter 14, you get Judah taking their territory and Caleb taking his hill. And so they do it. Now it's interesting because 15 we're told that even though Joshua captures Hebron, Judah themselves can't take Jerusalem. Jerusalem was conquered earlier. And apparently after its conquest, the Jebusites moved in.
After this conquest.
Yeah, after the first conquest.
After the Amorites are gone, then the Jebusites.
Then the Jebusites come in.
Where do they come from?
Oh, they were in outlying areas. They lived in that area, but they didn't control Jerusalem until afterwards. They had probably been in another city that they got driven out of by the Israelites, and so they moved over to there. Because what you have is the Israelite armies moving around attacking, and all these people are shifting around to avoid them. So they're not wiping everybody out. Even when they take a city, a lot of the people have already fled. And the villages around have not fled into the city, but fled away.
So do you think that when they conquered the Amorites, that unified the Jebusites to come in?
Yeah. Yeah. And so they came in, because Jerusalem is an ideal defensive place. And they're going, you know, with these Israelites running around, if we're going to survive, hey, there's the place to go. They may have taken it, but we can reinforce it. So they get in there, they reinforce it, they build up its defenses. And it was ideally situated for defense amongst those cities around there.
Well, I had one more question too. God stops the rotation of the earth, the sun shines the next day. Are there any other biblical writings or that record this event?
You mean extra biblical?
Mm-hmm.
Not that I know of. There's extra biblical reports of flood, but not of this event.
And how would one argue that scientifically?
You know, you have to say either laws of physics were suspended and things got rotated and started back over, or they say there was some kind of refraction of the sun. But now the problem is in the Battle of Gibeon, it's about a 24-hour time period that the moon stands over this valley. I mean, it's not just for an hour. You know,
it's an extra day.
Yeah, it's a whole extra day. So that makes it really difficult to do refraction.
But in a sense, it would line up because it wouldn't have started after 18 hours because then it would be out of position.
Yeah.
So if it waits a full 24 hours, then the
Everything's
Lord
back in
could
line.
be miraculously providing light until it gets around and then pulls out and lets the sun take over again.
Yeah.
I mean,
So yeah, what it is some kind of miraculous intervention, and we're not given the scientific explanation. And you know, there's those Christian myths that runs around that the NASA was trying to figure out why their clock was off, and you know, all this stuff.
That's not true. Are you familiar with Dr. Chittick? Dr. Chittick?
Uh-huh.
It seems like he wrote on this, and he said he found writings
Yeah.
in South America where they recorded
Oh, really?
this event on that day.
Oh, okay.
Like you'd heard
Now
of.
that I hadn't heard about that, but that would be interesting to find. Yeah. So now, Judah fails to take Jerusalem. Then you know we go through the list. Notice Ephraim fails to take Gezer, Manasseh, and so even here in Joshua, we're told that even as God is giving them the land, they are failing to finish the job. Now, God did tell them this, that He was going to leave the Canaanites. They were not going to be able to wipe them out all at once, because He was leaving them in order to maintain the land until they could fill it up. But also that they still needed to wipe them out, otherwise they would become thorns in their eyes and get them in trouble, which is exactly what they did. And it's real clear from the text. The problem is a lack of faith, not a lack of ability and resources. And that it's just simply they were not believing God. They were intimidated by these Canaanites. But you also need to understand, these Canaanites were not a bunch of wimps. They were tough. In fact, the Hittites, which is one of the Canaanite groups, they spread their empire all the way into modern-day Turkey. They had iron chariots. You know, they were not insignificant. But they were defeatable by faith, if they had done it.
I think
Now,
also interesting too, as you think about this from just a contextual standpoint, even if you won the battle, you would have suffered some casualties
That's
along
right.
the way. And as the army comes home, there are families grieving over the loss of her husband or dad in the midst of the victory of the battle. So God's promise to deliver the land to them is in the midst of, total grief and dismay for some people.
That's right. Yeah.
Also goes against
bittersweet.
Yeah. And I think that's true of everybody's life, even today. It's God gives us victory, and sometimes that hurts along the way too.
But sometimes there's a price to pay for the victory, and it would be for them. Now, they continue to the apportionment, and we end up in that section, chapter 21, with them done. And it's interesting because as of chapter 21, God has fulfilled Jacob's blessing in Genesis 49. The tribes are where Jacob said they would be, including those, Simeon and Levi scattered amongst their brothers and not getting an inheritance, and the ones that would be by the sea or by the sea, they end up where he said they would be. And God fulfills his promise. And in fact, that's one of the points made in the book of Joshua, that all the promises of God were fulfilled. All the land promises were fulfilled. They got the land that he promised them. And they still had to finish taking it, but he'd given it to them. It's in their hand. Now, we have an interesting incident then in the last chapters where you have Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe Manasseh. As they return home, they build that altar. And why does everyone get all excited about that?
They're all sinners.
Yeah, they think, ooh, sin. They're going to be worshiping a false god. And of course, they clarify that it's just a memorial altar. It's not a sacrifice altar, and then it's okay. And I think so, because one of the things in the book of Joshua is the erection of memorials. They had the 12 stones that they brought out of the river as a memorial. Now they have this altar as a memorial, as a reminder that they belong. Both sides. And it's just like in Genesis. You remember when Jacob is returning home, they erect a memorial between him and his father-in-law. It says, here's the dividing line. You can't cross it. I'm not going to cross it.